Welcome back to another episode of Resurrected Rose Petals. I'm your host, Morris Valley. Today I want to speak to you guys about the origins of the Holy Bible's title. Many don't know that the origins of Holy Bible derives from the transliteral context of Helios Biblos, which translates into the Sun Book. With this being said, I'd like to revisit some material that was covered on prior episodes where I spoke about Europeans claiming that our African ancestors worshipped material objects such as nature and did not believe in the belief of one God, which is untrue. Whereas we believed in the divine aspect of all things because we understood that God created all things. The Sun Book is clearly speaking about the S-U-N instead of the S-O-N. Whereas when you check back and read materials and look at the visuals within the hieroglyphs in ancient Africa, in the temples of Khufu and many other temples or pyramids, you will see that we did not worship the sun, but we solely understood that the sun was the most dominant life-giving force in existence. But beyond the sun, the S-U-N, was the Spirit of God, which permeated through the sun that we see and feel to bring forth life from the earth. Also, when you check the transcripts and you look at the historical evidence in ancient Africa, you will also see that every time Heru, which is today's Jesus Christ, Heru the Christ or the lighthouse, was never given a man's head in the actual hieroglyphs. It was always depicted by the hawk being the bird. And the bird sat behind the heads of the ancient ones that ruled in that time as Heru kings or shepherd kings. So they ruled with the rulership orchestrated by the laws and principles of the divine God, not by political aspects and political means as is today. So, with this taken into account, it is to be understood that this was a principle instead of a person that was applied to a society and all of its people occupying that territory. So this was not solely an individual coming out of the sky, but an individual manifesting the God within himself to rule himself and his people in a divine manner. The reason I'm covering this today is because I'm noticing that we are not understanding the mythos involved in scriptural texts. What I mean by mythos is we are not understanding the spiritual lessons of the Bible that are inherent in each and every one of us as individuals. Instead, we have been brainwashed by Europeans to believe that the embodiment of God exists in a European man with blonde hair and blue eyes as the idols depict in many of the synagogues and churches that exist today around us, that we visit, whether it be on holidays or whenever it is that we go to these churches and occupy. Whereas in ancient times in Africa, this was not so, where it was a principle, it was not an individual. For these principles of the sun and the sun setting, or the setting of the sun, was light and dark, which was repetitious, and it was a divine mythos that explained that there has to be a balance between light and dark. And it was repetitious day in and day out. The victory of the sun was at the dawn of when the sun rose again the next day to arise. So every day there was a new day to overcome darkness and shine again as a vibrant light, coming forth, bringing forth lightness out of darkness. Today this has been taken completely out of context. And now we're looking for someone to save us without manifesting the change in ourselves that we want to see outside of ourselves, which will never happen. First, we must change ourselves if we want to see the change. We can't keep waiting on the world to change and not change ourselves. This is completely ridiculous for us to even conceive in concept. But this is the way that we've been indoctrinated by Europeans. Whereas I would like to read a precept out of the Holy Bible with Jacob. Well, as a matter of fact, I'll just give the scriptural text and you can Google and you can find out on your own. I want you guys to begin to study. I don't want to be a talking text to you guys and you not put the work in, but I'll give you the information and the materials necessary so that you can apply it and study and show yourself improved. I'd like you to Google or go to your Bibles and go and find in Genesis where Jacob, once his name was changed from Jacob to Israel, he took into himself 4 wives. And from those 4 wives derived 12 sons. And those 12 sons that derived from those 4 wives by Israel became 12 tribes. This is clearly a zodiac or astrological concept right before your eyes, before you, because there are 2 solstices, which are seasons, and 2 equinoxes, which are seasons as well. Excuse me, as we know today is winter, spring, summer, and fall. So you have 2 solstices and 2 equinoxes. So what you're reading is a book about nature and the astrological pattern that takes place, causing a change in the season and a shift in climate and a shift in nature that we have to balance with good and bad. And also, when you read the precept of Jesus Christ and the 12 disciples, once again, these are symbolisms manifesting and meaning and breakdown of the equinoxes and the solstices that we have to research to get back to, so we can understand the astrological hidden meaning or occult understanding of why these solstices and equinoxes are in this Holy Bible, Helios Biblos, the Sun Book, and understand the travel of the sun in the book and what's taking place. For if we do not understand this and we are waiting on something else to manifest to save us and not save ourselves, then we are locking ourselves mentally in as slaves. Whereas there are a plethora of scriptures which speak of the character Jesus Christ in the Bible as having a face too bright to even be seen with the eyes. But this is put into context as being a man that is too vibrant for you to experience with human vision. But this is a misinterpretation of ancient African literature, which is solely speaking on the sun S-U-N and not the sun S-O-N. I also like to share with you guys about another encryption within the Sun Book or Holy Bible about Lazarus. Lazarus in the scriptures, in the New Testament, is a story about a man in a tomb that died. And Jesus went into the tomb in the story and blessed the man and caused him to awake out of his sleep of being deceased and brought him back to life, and he walked out of the tomb that his deceased body was in and walked back amongst people. What many of you may not understand is that Lazarus, when you break down the L and the AZAR and the US at the end in the Semitic language, L means to or the, and the US means to call forward. And AZAR in the word Lazarus is Asar in Egyptian or Kemet language, which is still in the hieroglyphs today. So what you're reading about is the calling forth of Asar, which is in material and books that you can purchase today. It is called the rites of passage. The rites of passage is an initiate process where one is taken from amongst the people in the village that is worthy of the knowledge and is tested in his honor of holding the sacred wisdom of God and distributing it amongst the people. And in order to distribute it amongst the people, he must be worthy of the information and tested as an initiate first. And this rites of passage, which is the calling forth of Asar, is the opening of the mind and giving one the mental capacity to understand those things hidden from people who have a carnal or bad intent mind state, which would use that information and that language to exploit people and basically use them and manipulate them for his own personal gains if he was not worthy or she was not worthy of that information. So this is the calling forth of Asar right before your eyes, encrypted in this Helios Biblos, which we today call the Holy Bible. There are many other examples in this Holy Bible that point back to ancient Kemet and point back to Asar and Aset and Heru, which once again was called by the Greeks Isis, Osiris, and Horus, which later, after Isis, Osiris, and Horus, became Mary, Joseph, and Jesus that we know today. I want to share that information with you guys so you have this into context, that all of these things are pointing back to Egypt, to ancient Kemet. But when you read the information and research what I'm telling you or sharing with you, remember, Egypt is a European name placed on ancient Kemet. And many books and a lot of the materials that you may seek to research ancient Kemet, beginning with Egypt, has images and idols that relate to Europeans, telling you that they are who you're in search of. They are attempting to take our place in history so that you have no place in your historical conquest of knowing yourself. There has been great limps, like I've said before, in covering up who we are, so that we may not know who we may become again. For if you know your past, you know where you're going in the future. But if you don't know who you are in the past, you stay suspended in the past underneath the yoke of oppression that you're dealing with day in and day out by those who oppress you. So we must pave our own way, because the way that's paved before us is a hamster wheel where we just go round and round and figuring out we're taking the same steps, getting the same results, not doing anything different, which is insanity. Until next time, I'll see you guys again, and I'll keep turning it up each time right here on Resurrected Rose Petals. Peace.